I know some people who apply for positions that they're not at all qualified for because they either want to work at that company or they think they can do the job even though they have zero experience doing it. And then there's other people like myself that I'm very picky about the organizations I apply for, the positions I apply for, because I want there to be an alignment of values and beliefs and a focus on the people. Welcome back to Unapologetic Rabble-Rousers. I'm DocShellie.
And I'm Carla Lewis. And we are taking a little different trip this time around. We've spent the last number of segments discussing really important elements of relationships, communication, respect, listening. And as we were preparing for today, we got into a conversation about some experiences that people are having, and notably, Michelle, you have some recent experience with some of this, that has to do with bringing all of the stuff we've talked about up till now together under this umbrella that I don't know what we would call it. We talked about it in terms of being in the hiring and looking for a job
seekers and job hirers. Hirers.
Got it. Okay. The hiring people and the people who are looking to be hired. And we began just discussing so many different anecdotes that at the heart of them have really important messages that are reflected in some of the work that we've already covered. So we thought we might just have a conversation about perspectives from the inside, from the outside, from being the person who's looking for a role and someone who is looking for someone to fill a role. And we're taking a bit of advantage right now, Michelle, your current situation.
Yep.
So it's going to go where it goes.
It's going to go where it goes. But we'll see what happens.
That's right. One of the things we know for certain is that people who are in any of those positions right now, you're looking for a job because you want to. You are looking for a job because you have to. You didn't have a job and you're getting your first one. You had a job and now you need to find a new one. Or you're on the hiring side and you're looking for somebody to fill a role. And you may be looking externally or you may be looking internally, but there's a whole lot of dynamics involved in this.
And maybe you're a person who's supporting someone who's looking for a role. I think that's another important person and element of this conversation.
Yes, and I would be in that role with you.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about one of the things that you brought up so regularly about your search has really been the disrespect, the ignorance, and you've not used those words. I'm interpreting, okay? Because when we talk about mutual respect, there is not a place where it doesn't fit. And most assuredly, it fits in this candidate being considered or considering a job and then a company considering a candidate. Mm-hmm. So let's just reflect a little bit on really the perspective as a candidate, the position you are in when you are ready to, you've sent your paperwork in or you've responded to the form or whatever is the way. Let's talk about what kind of things are going on.
So it's really interesting. I know some people who apply for positions that they're not at all qualified for because they either want to work at that company or they think they can do the job even though they have zero experience doing it. And then there's other people like myself that I'm very picky about the organizations I apply for, the positions I apply for, because I want there to be an alignment of values and beliefs and a focus on the people. And not every company does that. A lot of them talk a good game. I had one experience that comes to mind as I'm talking about that is I went through multiple rounds of interviews with a large organization and they completely ghosted me. I never received a message. And these were in-person interviews. I interviewed with a recruiter, I interviewed with a hiring manager, and then I interviewed with a team of people in person. I was told they'd follow up in a couple days. After about a week, I sent an email and said, hi, I'm just checking in, wrote some niceties. No response, no feedback. And I thought, I invested time with you people, and you people invested time with me. The least you could do is say we went with another candidate. But they completely ghosted me. And I thought, for an organization who claims to care about your people, that also means you need to care about your candidates. And I will never work at this organization. I don't care how much money they offer me, and I don't care what kind of position it is. You showed me who you are.
That, first off, an ugly experience.
Yeah.
And a powerful one. Think about that if you happen to be in a position where you are reaching out and selecting candidates to come in and do the interviewing. Why would you not want to follow up as a respectable, respectful company and person in that company? Why would you not follow through to conclude the business, whatever is that conclusion?
Right.
So we talk about mutual respect. There is not a shred of it in a situation like that.
Yeah. And then conversely, I had another experience where I went through some virtual interviews, great conversations. I was pretty certain I was going to get an offer, and they went in another direction, which was fine. And the recruiter shared with me, probably a little bit more than she should have, but she shared with me some of the reasons why. And I asked her if the people I interviewed with had any feedback for me. And it took her about a week to get back with me, but she got back with me and she said, I talked to both of the key stakeholders that you interviewed with. They loved you. Well, they don't really have any feedback. You did great. You answered your questions. You were, articulate. You gave great examples. There was good strategy. This other person just had a little bit more experience in one thing that you didn't necessarily have. And that was the decision they went with. There was also some salary differentiators there too, but I loved that she got back with me. And if that organization reached out to me or I saw another position, I wouldn't hesitate because of those interactions. I really enjoyed everyone I talked with. Mm-hmm. And the recruiter from day one followed through and did everything she said she was going to do. And when she didn't have an answer, she called me to tell me, I know I promised you an answer today. I'll get with you on Monday. She was very communicative and did everything she said she was going to do. She's probably the only one that has done that.
So in that, we talk about calibrating expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You are not left to assume that they are or are not going to follow through. First off, they stood up with integrity and said, we will follow through. Thanks for asking. And then they did.
Yeah.
So as an organization that is looking for people, what you don't say almost speaks louder than what you do say.
Absolutely.
Just the whole notion of feedback. I don't even get me going about the feedback in terms of performance appraisals and such like that
Lord.
people don't get.
Yeah.
We might want to spend an entire segment
we could do a whole episode on
that.
Yeah.
Yes. But the feedback, it's huge.
I almost always ask for feedback. I had another interview with another organization. I've had quite a few interviews, which is great that I'm getting the interviews. And I knew it was probably a little bit advanced in terms of some of the experience they were looking for that I didn't necessarily have. But I thought, I don't know who else is applying, and I have enough. I meet all of their required and then most of their nice to haves. And I thought I'm going to apply anyway. Had a great conversation, really good interview, and the recruiter called me back and she said, I wanted to let you know that they're going to move forward with 2 other candidates. And she gave me some specific feedback on what I did really well. And again, it was just these other people had a little bit more experience in this certain area. Well, cool, thank you. And I said, what do you think I could do to get the experience in that area? Because I'm super passionate about this work. And she said, you know what, let me talk to the hiring manager. And she sent me an email with a couple things that I could learn about, talk about, position a little bit differently. Thank you. That's going to help me going forward.
Wow.
And I know that some of these companies have thousands of applicants for one job. So I get that you can't talk to everybody, but even how you, if you do or you don't, get that first email back that says, thanks for applying. You don't have what we're looking for. But it's fascinating to me how many examples I've seen and received myself of just poorly worded rejection letters. And this is just, you applied, they claim they looked at your stuff, and they're like, no. I have received some that have said, thank you so much for applying. We know this is a daunting process. Thank you. Unfortunately, we're going to move forward with other candidates. Awesome. Versus, you don't meet our qualifications, so we're moving forward with people that more closely align to what we're looking for. And I check every single one of your boxes and then some. You're not looking for a more qualified person. You're looking for an otherly qualified person, which is fine. But words change worlds.
An otherly.
Yeah.
But think about that, though. As a hiring organization, you have the opportunity to review lots of input from lots of different people. And we've both been in this position of having to sort through candidates to fill a position somewhere down in our organization. But you have an opportunity through that interview or that review process and that interview process to determine that you actually do have some other things that are tiebreakers.
Absolutely.
When it comes down to it. Now, is that something you're holding up your sleeve so that you can trump a decision somewhere because you had the secret card? I don't know. But being able to be aware of what are some of those otherly things as a company, as a hiring company, it's important to understand that. As a candidate, you're helping them learn that. But if I could, I would like to take it just in a slightly different direction, because one of the things you talked about, I checked off every box and then some, but you found something else that you wanted that you couldn't find on my resume. One of the things we've talked about is that we may not have all of the qualifications, we may not have all of the experiences, but what you brought up, let's talk about what you brought up.
Yeah, so being a woman, I think I'll start here with where I think you're headed, is women tend to not apply for jobs if they don't meet every single qualification. Men will be like, I got this. I got one qualification and I'm going for it. Yeah, because they just in general have that level of confidence in their abilities.
And this is scientifically backed research.
Yeah.
But okay.
But I don't want to stereotype every male, every female. So, just in general, men tend to apply for jobs that they may or may not be qualified for. Women tend to be a little bit more selective in that. So I put a lot of effort into the jobs I'm going to apply for. I do the research, all of that. But I also see people who don't know how to handle the conversation in an interview if they don't have the exact experience. So I'm skilled enough. I can talk about my transferable skills. I can talk about something that closely aligns. I can get close, if not the exact experience. But other people will say something along the lines of, and I've seen this with people I've interviewed for positions, well, I don't have that exact experience, but I could do it. How would you do it? Tell me more. And it's almost like some people go into the interview as if I'm trying to convince you that I have the right stuff, versus I go in, of course I want the job, otherwise I wouldn't have accepted the interview. But I'm not going in to convince you or compel you that you should hire me and not look at anyone else. I know that you as an interviewer have a really tough decision to make. I've been there. I've interviewed hundreds of people. Some people I have become friends with that I've interviewed because I care about the people. We have a great conversation. I've gotten to know them a little bit. And weeks later, I'll get an email because the recruiter let them know they didn't get the job. And they'll contact me and say, hey, do you have any feedback? There was an interview team of 7 or 8 people. I was the only one that got contacted. Because it's about building a relationship when you're in the interview process. I'm testing you as much as you're testing me.
And that is key.
Yeah. I want to know, are you good people to work with? Do you really live the values that you claim on your website? Because every company on their website, we care about our people. Mm-hmm. We have work-life balance. We have a great culture. When you're skilled at interviewing people, because that's what I'm doing as a candidate, I am also interviewing you. You get skilled at asking some of those questions. And then you can learn more. And then you get to decide if they make me an offer, do I want to take it or not? And I know some people don't have the luxury of not accepting an offer. Totally get that. Sometimes you do. So it's a very interesting process, and how many people handle it so differently. I have friends that are job searching right now as well. And some go in with, I'm going to convince them I'm the right person. Mm-hmm. I'm going to sell. But that's not who they are. They're not a salesperson. They're not even going for a sales job. And they put on airs.
Okay.
And almost this overconfidence. And I got to be funny. I got to be this. I got to be that. Go in and do you. Mm-hmm. Because if you sell them on this persona that you've created for the interview process, and then you show up day one and they're like, what happened to that person?
Mm-hmm. The one we interviewed.
Yeah.
That's the one we want.
Exactly.
So the notion coming in and trying to convince people, trying to sell you on you. But at the end of the day, you have made a decision that you accepted the interview because you've done some research. And so step one, we're going to meet for coffee. So you go in knowing that you have some qualifications that make you a plausible candidate. And they've seen that. And they too have met you halfway saying, we see in you reason enough to invest some time in finding out if we're going to do more than have coffee. So going in with this need to sell and compel people, that's like in conflict management, it's like standing on one leg with the other one pointed straight up in the air, and you could just get tipped over at the slightest little thing. You're not in integrity with yourself. You're not aligned with the values that you bring into the job. You need to be so brutally you in that moment, because that's where your strength is. Don't pretend. You can't pretend.
Yeah. It's like any conversation we've talked about. If I'm trying to compel you or convince you to my point of view, you can feel that. Mm-hmm. You can feel the angst in that. And who wants to feel that coming from a candidate in an interview process?
Yes.
And I know people will say, well, I have to feed off the energy of whoever I'm interviewing with. You don't have to match their energy. I mean, don't be all, wah! But be professional. But you can still come in. If you're a high energy person, bring your high energy. If you're a low energy person, do you. Don't try to think, oh, this is what they're looking for. You have to be genuine to yourself. Otherwise, if you even get the job at that point, you're not probably going to have any longevity, mm-hmm. if that's important to you.
And one would hope that there would be an interest in at least spending some time.
Which brings me to another topic.
Yes.
The overqualified people.
Oh, yes. You need to be so brutally you in that moment, because that's where your strength is. Don't pretend. You can't pretend.